Let me tell you a little something about myself. Growing up, I was never interested in politics, not in high school, not in middle school, and certainly not in elementary school. The idea of constantly arguing with people about policies and rights and regulations just seemed like the most boring thing in the world to me. If I held any position in politics, it was that of the extreme centrist. Someone who hates all sides because of their worst traits and fails to see the good in any type of politics. I have to admit, old habits die hard, and I still dislike politicians, but what got me interested in political debate was the last thing I would have expected: a video game.
Truth is, the game was rigged from the start.
Fallout New Vegas is a game developed by Obsidian Entertainment and published by Bethesda Softworks. It was released in 2010 as an entry to their widely popular Fallout franchise, consisting of games set in a post-nuclear America. Players could freely explore the Nevada desert, granted they don't get killed by mutant animals, and would be able to complete quests with multiple different endings. New Vegas's versatility in this area made it a hit in the RPG community, and the game has maintained a cult following to this day. Now, let's get to the interesting stuff. At the center of New Vegas is a conflict so massive it bleeds into almost every quest and location within the game. 4 factions want to control New Vegas. Every other minor faction prefers one of those 4 major factions. It's up to the player to decide who wins and who loses, and they do this by making several smaller decisions that change the future little by little. Every time you decide to help someone or kill someone, you're making a choice that may in some small or large way affect how things turn out. Naturally, players become invested in this world, interested in its factions and determined to make the best possible choice for its future. Or some of them just want to watch the world burn. But either way, Fallout New Vegas tricks you into learning about 4 different types of political systems without even knowing it. The first is a republic called the NCR, New California Republic, a country very similar to modern-day America, as it was practically built to carry on its legacy. The NCR has a democratically elected president. They have a legislative branch full of congressmen from each state. They even have a judicial branch and a court system that guarantees equality for all of its citizens. Worded this way, the NCR sounds like a haven, and yet the Republic is plagued with all the same problems of its predecessors. Corruption runs rampant in the government. Senators may take bribes from wealthy Brahmin barons and pass laws that only benefit the elite. Colonialism is in full effect. The NCR forces smaller communities to join them whether they like it or not. The NCR is actively trying to expand its borders through military invasion, and this tends to leave a lot of blood on their hands, as is the case with the Great Khans.
They tracked us to Bitter Springs and surrounded us. When our children, our sick and old, fled through a nearby pass, the NCR gunned them down.
So the question posed to the player by the NCR is whether a democracy is worth it. Can we get rid of its worst parts and make it a utopia, or will it forever be plagued with these same problems? The second option is Caesar's Legion. Let's not beat around the bush here, it's a military dictatorship. All power is consolidated within one ruthless leader. Every tribe met by Caesar's Legion is conquered, forcefully assimilated into the Legion, and deprived of any unique culture they may have. Minority groups and women are intentionally oppressed within the Legion, most of them being made into slaves. Caesar has successfully created a homogeneous empire where every outsider is deemed less than human and therefore subject to death, torture, or rape. So what's interesting about the Legion is why anyone would pick them at all. I see two very distinct possibilities. The large majority of people are probably just doing an evil playthrough of the game. They just want to watch the world burn and get the worst possible ending. That's fair enough. Otherwise, they're so blinded by the benefits offered by the Legion, such as heightened security and a strong sense of national pride, that they choose to look past all the wrongdoings and label the Legion as the objectively best choice. This provides a lot of useful insight into why people in our own world would ever gravitate towards a dictatorship. Either they know that it's evil but don't care because it makes an enemy out of the people they hate, or they genuinely can't tell it's evil because all the positives seem to mentally outweigh the literal war crimes being committed. So let's move on to the third option, Mr. House. At first, he may seem like another dictator, though he prefers the term autocrat. But what's interesting about Mr. House is that he doesn't infringe on the freedoms of his people. There are no slaves to be found here, and you can do almost anything that Caesar's Legion would consider a vice, like drugs, gambling, or sex work. Vegas is a capitalist utopia, where money talks and life is good. But its citizens give up all their political freedoms to achieve this. They can't vote on Mr. House's policies, he decides them. They can't go against Mr. House, or they will be wiped out by his robot army. Alright, so what are Mr. House's policies? He wants to use the economy of New Vegas to fund space exploration, given that the planet has been turned into a nuclear wasteland and humanity is going to need a new home. Well, that sounds pretty good to me, but doing so neglects the less fortunate areas of New Vegas. Mr. House has no plans to help people in poverty, help people who are struggling. He just wants to make life better for the rich and propel humanity to the next stage in its evolution.
Nothing to impede progress. If you want to see the fate of democracies, look out the windows.
Therefore, the question asked of the player by Mr. House is whether this future is worth sacrificing all political freedoms. There is a fourth and final option, and that is placing yourself in charge. Though by the looks of it, this doesn't really work. When you read the ending slides, it becomes more apparent that this is a version of anarchism. By overthrowing Mr. House and defending Hoover Dam from the NCR and Caesar's Legion, the player gives control of the city to the people. The player can't effectively govern them or keep them in check, and they start to self-govern. Seeing as we can't play past the ending of the game, we don't have much information on how this turns out apart from what the narration tells us. Either way, if you're into anarchism, self-governance, I guess you can pick this option. The question being asked here is it worth it at all to have a government? Now, I've basically dumped all of this information on your head, but whenever you're just playing normally, you would be learning all of this whenever you're talking to an NPC, or reading some data log in a computer, or listening to the radio. The faction leaders will even tell you straight up what they plan to do, leaving you to decide whether you agree or disagree with their plans. So there's a lot of subjective interpretation in New Vegas. Everybody is going to have different opinions when it comes to freedom versus safety, left versus right, democracy versus authoritarianism. And over the course of the game, you'll gradually form a political opinion, whether you like it or not. To complete the game, you'll have to make an active choice about what system is best for the wasteland, and when you inevitably step out into the fanbase, you'll find that 75% of people disagree with you and picked a different ending. So you'll have plenty of debating to do about what the best ending is, who the best leader is, and who is Hitler reincarnated. That, of course, is the beauty of New Vegas. It somehow manages to put politics in a video game by making it actually interesting and engaging to the youth. When you let people make decisions that impact the ending of the game and show them what the consequences are, they become more invested in making the right decisions. It's just something I found interesting after finishing the game myself. I couldn't help but do multiple playthroughs, try out every ending, see what helped people the most, and discuss my findings with others. Since then, I've been more interested in what the best political system actually would be in our real world, and I credit New Vegas for sparking that interest within myself. I do hope more games aspire to handle politics similarly in the future, because this is excellent. This is the way to do it. This is New Vegas.